Hello, and welcome to our lesson, Overview of Technical and Professional Communication. In this lesson, we'll focus on examining the common practices and characteristics associated with technical communication. Before we begin, I want to remind you to make sure that you review the entire lesson and also take good notes as you're reviewing this content, so you're fully prepared for class. Now, to begin, I want to start by discussing the term genre, which is mentioned in a portion of your reading for this week. So genre is the term that we will use in our class to refer to a type or form of writing. While you may have previously heard the term genre used to describe categories of music or film or even literature, in technical communication, a genre refers to the type or form of writing used to communicate a message. Truly, genres are patterns that reflect how communities, including people and technical workplaces, can get things done. So when we think of the type of text that a writer is working to produce, we're truly referring to the genre itself. A genre could be an email that you're working to compose. Another genre could be a presentation. We could be looking at a specific diagram or a letter, or even a resume is an example of a genre. When we consider writing through a genre studies perspective, we're able to understand many more complex aspects of writing as we move beyond an assumption that a set of rules for writing exist, and instead consider the factors surrounding the writing situation and the text itself. While genres provide writers with knowledge of how to respond to common situations, a writer must also consider the unique expectations of their specific writing scenario, as genres are complex social practices that people engage in and transform. Today, the ability to write and publish text is greater than ever before due to advances in technology. Because of this, genres are also dynamic and constantly changing. Let's go ahead and continue discussing some other common characteristics associated with genres. So while they're used to convey a message, they can be print, oral, or digital, as we saw in some of the previous examples. They're also much more than rigid categories or formulas that we have to follow mechanically. It's important to understand that they're more than basic categories. A category like fiction or nonfiction, for example, implies that a set of expectations exists widely from text to text within that category. But genres are far too complex. They are living, robust categories themselves. And so, for example, if we were looking at exploring expectations in technical communication, we would not be able to classify a set of rules for all the different genres you can compose within technical communication, like emails, letters, proposals. We need to examine the genre itself. So let's further examine some of the other common associations with genre. We can also call it a common way of responding to a situation. So to understand this, think about how we get insight on how to respond to a situation from a genre. For example, if I was going to compose a text message to my friend, I would likely know that I don't need a formal closing, such as stating "Sincerely, Lauren" at the end of my text message. Genres provide us with that knowledge, those common expectations of how to communicate within a specific text. Genres are also complex social practices that people engage in and transform. And that's because they carry with them the beliefs, the values, the ideologies of particular communities and cultures. If we think about the genre of a text message again, consider how common expectations we have may need to be adjusted based on the community or culture you're looking at. For example, we know proper grammar and spelling often are not expectations with a text message. However, imagine you're texting your boss for an internship that you recently began, and you're planning on helping set up for a company event. Even though proper grammar and spelling aren't common for text messages, your boss would probably value the clarity and professionalism, so you might use it in that specific instance. And finally, genres are dynamic and constantly changing. As the world around us constantly evolves, so too do genres. Consider the impact that technology alone has had on genres. Many digital genres, such as text messages, did not even exist 5, 10, or 20 years ago. For this reason, a writer needs to constantly consider the situation they're composing for and analyze the conventions or features of a genre, which we'll discuss much more as we go throughout this semester. Now, moving on to why it's important to examine genre in technical communication. Genres help shape a project's content, organization, style, design, and medium even. Genres provide people with the specific expectations for how texts are composed. For example, people in technical workplaces have common expectations on what it means to propose or to compose a proposal. Genres help us interpret workplace situations and make sense of what's happening around us. And they also can be adapted to various projects occurring within a workplace. They reflect truly the everyday activities and practices of technical workplaces. Now, moving on from the concept of genre to some of the specific processes and practices involved in technical writing. On this screen, you'll see I have several processes listed. It's important to note that while all of these are imperative to writing in technical fields, this is not a linear step-by-step process. But instead, a writer, when working with a technical piece of writing, will move back and forth while creating their project between these steps. So let's examine each one of these a little bit more in depth now. Okay. So to begin, stage 1 is often referred to as research and planning. This is also one of the areas that requires the most work of a writer. But the more you do here, the more your project is going to come together. So to start off, simply researching your topic is where many writers begin, asking themselves, what do I know about a topic? And then from there, deciding what type of research you need to conduct. If you were to conduct something like startup research, it would be to get a quick overview of your topic. So maybe some internet searches with some keywords associated with your topic, or looking over a few videos you could find discussing your topic on YouTube, versus more formal research would be looking at electronic, print, imperial sources to locate factual and data-based evidence on your topic, while always being mindful of if the information is credible, which we will discuss this semester. And then going to asking yourself, what's the purpose of this project? What's the purpose of my writing? What exactly do I want to achieve with this project? So for example, it's coming up with a statement where you can insert the genre you're working on with the ultimate end goal of what you're hoping to accomplish with that piece of writing. So the purpose of my proposal is to pitch a classroom remodel in Menard Hall to allow for more active learning lessons. That hypothetically could be a purpose for a project. Within the research and planning stage, we also want to look closely at our readers or our audience. Who is the audience? Who are our readers? What do they need to know and what do they want to know? And so you'll see on this slide towards the bottom, I've got some common expectations and questions that we would ask when analyzing the needs, the values, and the attitudes of our audience. And then within this step as well, we have examining your creative side. And this really gets to invention strategies. So how do you like to brainstorm to prepare for a project? Are you someone who's visual and wants to make a concept map? Or maybe you want to brainstorm a list. The key thing to consider at this point is what makes your topic interesting right now. How are you going to differentiate your piece of writing in relation to what is necessary and desired at this current time? And from there, you'll develop your strategic plan. This is where you look closely at objectives, both a top objective, an ultimate goal, and then secondary objectives. After you identify that ultimate goal, the secondary objectives are truly meant to help you identify outcomes to achieve that overall goal, and that's where you can start forming your task list of all the things you will need to do, converting those goals into specific tasks. And then developing a timeline is really your master schedule for how you're going to accomplish your project. The next phase is organizing and drafting. And within here, we identify the genre that we're going to actually create, and we start developing our first draft. The wonderful thing about examining the genre is that you're going to be able to have a map for how to organize your ideas and content. The genre dictates so much of that based on expectations for composing that text. And then next, within style are these two examples, the plain style and persuasive style. Improving the style really speaks to language choices, word choices. And so if we're looking at plain style, for example, this is language that's going to value clarity, accuracy, versus the persuasive style appeals to readers' physical senses, personal values, emotions with sensory details like color, texture, movement. So if we look at these two examples, these two ads for coffee here, you'll see the McDonald's ad. You don't need a glossary to read our menu. And then we have everything from black coffee, white coffee, latte, cappuccino. It is very concise and straightforward. This would be more associated with plain style. Versus the Dunkin' Donuts ad over here, we have the Discover Your New Brews, Dunkin' Midnight, Explorer Batch, Original Blend. And then you can see we have this descriptive language, especially in the details about the different options. So rich, intensely dark, chocolatey notes. That appeals to our senses much more so like persuasive style would. These are all choices that you'll be making as you compose technical documents for our class. And then moving on to phases 4 and 5 within the technical writing process. So design truly asks us to consider the attractiveness and accessibility of the text. We need to make sure that an audience can quickly navigate a text for the key details that they need and that it's accessible, that they are able to get their hands on it. So when we look at resumes, that is one of the huge genres we'll work on composing this semester, where we really privilege those ideas. And then finally, looking at that last process of revising and editing. When we talk about this, I think a lot of times when we discuss revision, editing, and composition and technical writing, those ideas get lumped together, but there's truly separate phases within revising and editing. Revising asks us to re-examine your subject and purpose while considering the audience itself, while substantive editing asks us to examine content, organization, and the design of the document. We get to copy editing then, where we're looking at sentence level issues, paragraphs, graphics for clarity and accuracy, and then finally proofreading is looking at grammatical errors, typos, updating any spelling issues, and usage mistakes. So we work from larger concerns all the way down to proofing and examining the minor issues that may exist within a draft. Okay, moving forward, on this page you'll see I've also highlighted the common characteristics of technical communication. So what's truly wonderful about this field is that technical communication is something that is expansive in the world today, and it's also something that allows writers to work with others that's incredibly visual, so we get to be creative with it, and that we examine important issues within technical communication too. And because of that, we look at the ethical, legal, political issues, we look at different cultural expectations, all of these factors into common expectations with technical communication. And then going along with that, the individual producing technical communication, we can see some of the common characteristics associated with successful entrepreneurs today. All of you, all the fields you're going into, have some type of entrepreneurial spirit associated with them. They'll require you to be leaders, to be good listeners, to be resilient when you encounter challenges as the expectations for writing continue to evolve in your fields. So being mindful of these characteristics, these traits, will help you be successful not only in our class, but in your fields as you move past our class. That's the key content for this lesson. What I'd like to end with is asking you to reflect upon what are some of the compelling ideas that stood out to you from this? What did you learn about technical communication? As well as what questions do you still have? Because we'll touch base on this content when we get back together in class next time. But thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you at our next class.